You've probably heard of betrayal, but imagine being betrayed by the one person you thought you could trust the most, your best friend. That's exactly what happened to me. My best friend Mia helped my brother, Zach, take everything I had, and I was left with nothing. But what Mia didn't know was that my grandmother, the quiet force behind everything, had a plan to make her pay. This is the story of how we turned the tables, and Mia got exactly what she deserved. My name is Lily, and for most of my life, I lived in the shadow of my father's empire. My dad built a massive business, and from the moment I was born, I was expected to follow in his footsteps. But that was never me. I wanted to make my own choices, live my own life. For years, I tried to please my father, hoping for his approval. But no matter how hard I worked, nothing seemed good enough. Then, after his sudden death, everything changed. The empire he left behind was now mine to inherit. But instead of feeling relieved, I felt trapped. My father had always controlled me, and now his death was leaving me with a choice I didn't want to make: take the inheritance or walk away. I chose to walk away, but little did I know, the people I trusted the most would betray me. My brother Zach, always the favorite, was quick to take control of the business. He thought I was foolish for rejecting it. And then there was Mia, my best friend, the one person I always thought I could trust. She had been the one to comfort me when I felt alone, always by my side. But when it came to the inheritance, she sided with Zach. I found out that Mia had been secretly helping Zach manipulate everything behind the scenes, making sure he would be the one to take over. They played me, they betrayed me, and they thought they could take everything from me. But what they didn't know was that my grandmother, Vivienne, wasn't like anyone else in the family. She was sharp, fierce, and a woman who had been through enough to know how to handle betrayal. She wasn't going to let anyone get away with what they did to me. Vivienne had lived through hardships and battles that most people couldn't imagine. She knew the game better than anyone. And when I told her about what Zach and Mia had done, she didn't say a word. Instead, she simply smiled. I didn't realize it at the time, but Vivienne wasn't just going to comfort me, she had a plan. A plan to make sure Mia and Zach would pay for what they had done. If you're enjoying this story and want to know how I took back control, hit that subscribe button and leave a comment letting me know where you're watching from. I'd love to hear your thoughts. The more I reflected on the choices I had made, the more the weight of the situation started to sink in. Walking away from my father's empire had been my choice, but it wasn't as freeing as I had imagined. At first, it felt like I had broken free from the chains of expectation and control. But the reality of being cut off from everything I'd ever known quickly caught up with me. I realized I had lost not only the inheritance, but also the trust of those I thought I could rely on: Zach, my brother, and Mia, my best friend. The betrayal wasn't just about money or power. It was about something deeper, something that ran through the very fabric of our relationships. Zach had always been the golden child. He was the one who could do no wrong in our father's eyes. I had always been pushed aside, expected to play a secondary role in the family business. When our father died, I thought for once I would have the chance to step into the spotlight, to claim what was rightfully mine. But Zach was quick to swoop in, to take control of everything just like he always did. He wasn't interested in fairness or equality. He just wanted to win, to be the one who proved himself worthy of our father's approval. The moment I rejected the inheritance, I saw his eyes harden, and I knew he would stop at nothing to secure it for himself. But it wasn't just Zach who betrayed me. Mia, my best friend, had been the one person I thought I could trust, the one person who had always been there for me. Or so I thought. I remember all the nights we spent talking about our future, our hopes, our dreams. I had confided in her about everything, from the pressure I felt living under my father's expectations, to the relief I felt when I chose to walk away. Mia had always been the one to tell me to follow my heart, to not let anyone control my decisions. She was my confidant, my partner in crime. But as time passed, I began to realize that she wasn't the ally I thought she was. She had been secretly working with Zach all along, helping him secure the business behind my back. The more I found out, the more disgusted I became. Mia wasn't just being a supportive friend. She had been playing me. She had been feeding Zach false information about me, convincing him that I wasn't fit to handle the inheritance, making sure that I would be left with nothing. She had even gone so far as to manipulate the legal documents, ensuring that I wouldn't have a chance to challenge Zach's control over the family business. What hurt the most was that she had pretended to be on my side, all the while helping Zach destroy me from the inside. She played her part so well, I never saw it coming. She pretended to be my best friend, but all along, she was just another opportunist looking for a way to secure her own future. The betrayal wasn't just about money. It was about trust, about the people I had let into my life, the people I had believed would always have my back. It felt like everything I had worked for, everything I had tried to build outside the shadow of my father's empire, was being stolen from me. And I was left standing there, vulnerable and exposed, with no one to turn to. But Vivienne, my grandmother, wasn't like anyone else. She had seen enough of the world to know how people operate, how they manipulate and deceive. She had lived through things that would have broken most people, yet she remained unshaken. When I finally broke down and told her everything about Zach's manipulation and Mia's betrayal, she didn't give me pity or empty words of comfort. Instead, she simply listened, quietly, her sharp eyes watching me carefully. "Lily," she said after a long pause, "you've been playing their game, letting them make the rules. You think you lost everything, but what you've really lost is the belief that you can control the game. You've given up your power without even realizing it." Her words hit me hard. Vivienne wasn't wrong. I had been playing by their rules, letting them decide my future, and now I was left with nothing but resentment. But Vivienne wasn't going to let me stay in that place. She had a plan, a way to turn the tables on Zach and Mia. "What they don't know, Lily, is that you have something they'll never have: patience, intelligence, and the power to make them regret everything they've done to you," Vivienne continued. "We're going to make them pay, but we won't do it the way they expect. We'll expose them, let their own greed destroy them." I didn't know exactly what she meant at the time, but the way she said it, the confidence in her voice, gave me the strength to believe that maybe, just maybe, I wasn't as powerless as I had felt. She had a plan, one that would expose Mia and Zach for what they truly were. And for the first time since rejecting the inheritance, I started to feel like I had a chance to regain control. I wasn't going to sit back and let them destroy me. I was going to fight, and I was going to use their own selfishness against them. But I knew it wouldn't be easy. Vivienne's plan wasn't about rushing in with a blind rage. It was about strategy, precision, and waiting for the right moment. We had to expose their lies, their manipulation, and let their own actions bring them down. It was time to take back what was mine: my life, my dignity, and my future, and make them face the consequences of their betrayal. As the weight of the situation continued to sink in, I realized that while I had walked away from the empire, my fight wasn't over. The betrayal by Zach and Mia still stung, and no matter how hard I tried to convince myself that I had made the right choice by walking away, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had let them win. They thought they had taken everything from me: my inheritance, my peace, my trust in the people I loved. And the worst part was, they were getting away with it. But then I remembered something Vivienne had said. Revenge is not about destruction. It's about exposing them for who they truly are. Vivienne had always been a woman of few words, but when she spoke, it was as if the world stood still to listen. She had seen it all: betrayal, loss, heartbreak, but through it all, she had remained one of the most strategic and calculating people I knew. She didn't rush into things like I had. She waited, studied, and made sure that when the time came to act, it was with precision. That's when I realized what I needed to do. I couldn't fight this battle by playing their game. I had to play my own. I went over every conversation I had with Mia, every moment I spent with her when she told me she was on my side. The more I thought about it, the more disgusted I became. She wasn't just a friend who made a mistake. Mia had been manipulating me, making me believe she was supporting my decision to walk away from the inheritance, all while working with Zach behind my back. She had been feeding him lies, convincing him that I was weak and unfit to run the family business. And what hurt even more was that I had been too blind to see it. I had trusted her. I had been vulnerable with her, believing she would never betray me. That's when I realized I had to use her greed and self-interest against her. Mia wasn't driven by loyalty or love or any of the things that I had believed connected us. She was driven by power and money. She wanted the life that came with being part of Zach's world. And Vivienne, with her sharp mind, saw this as an opportunity to set the perfect trap. "Lily, you've been playing their game, letting them make the rules," Vivienne said one evening, her voice calm but firm. "They think they've won, but what they don't know is that you have something they'll never have: patience, intelligence, and the power to make them regret everything they've done to you. We'll turn this around, but we'll do it on our terms." Vivienne's words rang in my ears. I wasn't helpless. I wasn't powerless. I had my own weapons: patience, wit, and the ability to see through their lies. Vivienne helped me see that revenge wasn't about taking back the empire. It was about exposing the truth and letting their own actions destroy them. Vivienne came up with a plan. We would use Mia's greed to our advantage. Mia was desperate for wealth and power, and Vivienne knew exactly how to exploit that. Vivienne had contacts, people who owed her favors, people who could help us gather the right information and put the pieces together. She suggested we make Mia believe that she could gain everything she wanted by betraying Zach, by testifying against him and claiming that he was reckless with the family business. We knew that Mia, blinded by the promise of wealth, would take the bait. She thought she could outsmart us. She thought she was smarter than me. But what she didn't know was that we had already planned every step. We had the evidence that she had been manipulating Zach and the business deals. We had proof of her lies, her involvement in the conspiracy, and the shady deals she'd made to secure her own future. All we needed to do was bait her, and she would willingly walk straight into our trap. Vivienne approached Mia under the guise of offering her a way out. She told her, "If you testify against Zach and expose what he's been doing, I'll give you $20 million and a powerful position in the family business." Mia, desperate for that kind of wealth and status, agreed without hesitation. She was so focused on the money, so blinded by her own desires, that she didn't see the trap we were setting. What Mia didn't know was that the moment she agreed, the game had already changed. Vivienne had already contacted a trusted lawyer who secretly recorded Mia's testimony. The moment Mia lied about Zach, claiming he was reckless and had ruined everything, the evidence we needed was in our hands. The entire world would see how Mia had betrayed her own best friend, how she had lied and manipulated the situation to gain power. But that wasn't enough. Vivienne had a few more tricks up her sleeve. While Mia thought she was securing her future, Vivienne leaked the testimony to the press, making sure it reached the media at the perfect time. Mia, thinking she had secured everything she wanted, was blindsided. The media picked up on her lies, and just like that, the truth came crashing down. Mia was exposed for the manipulator she was. The $20 million she thought she had earned evaporated into thin air, and the once loyal partners she had worked with pulled away. And just like that, everything Mia thought she had was taken away from her in one fell swoop. She didn't just lose the wealth, she lost everything she had worked for, all because of her greed. As for Zach, he was left in a spiral of self-destruction. The very empire he had taken from me, thinking he could control it, crumbled under the weight of his own corruption. The business partners he relied on turned on him, and his reputation was shattered. All the lies he had built his empire on came to light, and in the end, he was left with nothing but the consequences of his actions. After weeks of careful planning and strategic moves, Vivienne and I were ready to expose the truth and watch Zach and Mia crumble. It was time to turn the tables on the very people who thought they had outsmarted me, who thought they had destroyed me. What they didn't know was that Vivienne had spent her entire life playing the game of strategy, never rushing, always thinking ahead, and now it was my turn to play. Mia had fallen right into the trap we had set for her. She believed the lies we fed her, believed that betraying Zach and throwing him under the bus would be her ticket to the life she thought she deserved. She had no idea that the $20 million Vivienne promised her was never meant to be hers, but a bait to expose her greed and manipulation. Mia had always been someone driven by her desires, by her hunger for power and wealth. She thought she could manipulate everyone around her, including me. But what she didn't realize was that Vivienne had already figured her out. We had recorded Mia's testimony, where she painted Zach as a reckless businessman, the one who ruined everything by manipulating me and the inheritance. In her mind, she was securing her position in the business world, finally getting everything she wanted. She thought that with her lies, she'd be able to rise to the top while Zach would take the fall. But what she didn't know was that Vivienne and I had already anticipated this move. The moment she spoke those words, we knew we had her. Vivienne's sharp instincts were spot on. She knew when to strike, when to release the evidence. We leaked the recording of Mia's false testimony to the media at the perfect moment, ensuring it reached the public at the height of the tension. Mia, who thought she was securing her future, was blindsided when the truth came out. The world saw her for what she truly was: a liar, a manipulator, someone who would do anything for wealth and power. The very thing she thought would be her victory was now her undoing. But Mia wasn't the only one who had played a part in this scheme. Zach, too, was about to face the consequences of his own actions. As the media uncovered the truth about Mia's lies, they began to dig deeper into the family business, uncovering the corruption that Zach had worked so hard to hide. What Mia didn't know when she threw Zach under the bus was that Zach had been using her to do his dirty work. He had been manipulating her as much as he had been manipulating everyone around him, all in his quest for control over the family empire. Zach had always seen himself as the heir to the empire, but the truth was, he had done nothing but destroy everything in his path to get there. The business partners who once trusted him began to withdraw. They pulled out of the deals, distancing themselves from him as the full extent of his deceit came to light. His empire, the one he thought was his birthright, began to crumble. What Zach failed to realize was that the empire he was trying to control had never been his to take. It belonged to the family, and with it came responsibility, a responsibility that Zach had never cared to shoulder. All he cared about was winning, and now, his selfish ambition had destroyed everything. The media frenzy that followed was unforgiving. The truth about Zach's dealings, Mia's lies, and their manipulations was now public knowledge. The press ripped into their characters, exposing the people who had once been untouchable. But it wasn't just their professional lives that were ruined, it was their personal lives as well. Zach, who had believed that his power and wealth would shield him from the consequences of his actions, was left standing in the wreckage of his own making. His reputation was destroyed, his business partners abandoned him, and he was left with nothing but the weight of his own mistakes. And Mia? She didn't fare any better. As the media picked up on her involvement, her once glamorous life began to unravel. She thought she had secured a position of power and wealth, but she was blind to the fact that she was about to face serious repercussions for her lies. As soon as the truth was out, Mia was arrested for perjury and fraud. The wealth she had dreamed of became nothing more than an illusion, and the very position she thought she could attain was ripped away from her. She was now facing the consequences of her greed and betrayal. Standing there beside Vivienne, I watched as everything Zach and Mia had worked for their empire, their reputation, their plans crashed down around them. The satisfaction I felt wasn't about destroying them. It wasn't even about taking back the empire. It was about watching them face the consequences of their actions. It was about seeing them realize that their lies and manipulations had finally caught up with them. "You thought you could take everything from me," I said to Zach, who stood before me, defeated. I could see the desperation in his eyes, the realization that everything he had worked for was gone. But in the end, it was you who lost everything. Zach stood there, humiliated and powerless. The business he thought he had taken control of slipped away from him. He had no one left to blame but himself. And as for Mia, she was carted off to face the law for her role in the betrayal. She was taken away in handcuffs, her once glamorous life now reduced to nothing more than a cold reality. The moment was sweet, not because they lost everything, but because I had finally taken control. Vivienne's plan, paired with my patience and resolve, had destroyed them not physically, but by exposing their lies and letting the world see them for who they truly were. As the dust settled, I stood there, feeling a sense of peace I hadn't felt in years. I wasn't tied to the empire anymore. I didn't need it. What mattered now was that I had taken control of my life, reclaimed my peace, and learned the greatest lesson of all, that no amount of wealth or power could ever replace the strength I had found within myself. I had exposed the truth. I had walked away from everything, but I had gained something far more valuable: my freedom. And with Vivienne's guidance, I finally felt like I was free to live my life on my own terms, without the weight of betrayal or the shadows of manipulation hanging over me. If you enjoyed this part of my journey and want to hear more about how I continue to rebuild my life, hit that subscribe button. And let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'd love to hear your thoughts. After everything unfolded, I stood in the ruins of what used to be my family's empire, but I wasn't the one left with nothing. Zach and Mia had lost everything, not just the business, but their reputation, their credibility, and the trust of everyone they once knew. For so long, I had felt like I was trapped in the shadow of my family's expectations, controlled by the legacy of a business I didn't want. Now, with that weight lifted, I felt a peace I had never known before. But the journey to this moment hadn't been easy. In fact, there were moments when I doubted everything. The pain of betrayal ran deep, and I wasn't sure if I'd ever be able to get over it. My own brother, the one I had shared so much of my life with, had turned against me in a bid for power. Mia, my best friend, had sided with him, using me for her own selfish gain. The emotional toll it took on me was immense. It wasn't just about losing the family business. It was about losing people who were supposed to care for me, who I thought had my back. I had to come to terms with the fact that the people closest to me were the ones who had hurt me the most. But that's when I realized something crucial. They hadn't really taken anything from me. Yes, they had taken control of the family business. And yes, they had tried to make me feel worthless. But what they hadn't taken was my ability to make my own choices. I had chosen to walk away, to refuse to play their game. I had chosen peace, and in the end, that choice had been worth more than any inheritance or empire could ever be. The lessons I learned during this time were profound. The first lesson was that people's actions, no matter how cunning or manipulative, always come with consequences. Zach and Mia had thought they could control me, that they could get away with their lies and betrayals. They had used me for their own gain, but in the end, they couldn't escape their own greed and selfishness. Watching their empire collapse, watching Mia face the law for her role in their manipulation, was the kind of justice I had been hoping for. But even more than that, it was a reminder that no one is invincible. The truth always comes to light, no matter how carefully someone tries to hide it. The second lesson was about strength. I had spent so much of my life feeling small, believing that my worth was tied to my father's empire, that my identity was wrapped up in what he had built. But when I rejected the inheritance, I began to realize that my true strength wasn't in the wealth I could acquire or the position I could hold. It was in my ability to choose my own path. Vivienne had always told me that true strength comes from within, and in the end, she was right. I didn't need to prove myself to anyone. I didn't need to chase the approval of my father or my brother. All I needed was to be true to myself. And then there was the most important lesson of all. Revenge wasn't about destroying them. It was about reclaiming my own power. At first, I had thought that getting back at Zach and Mia would be the ultimate satisfaction. But as I watched them fall, I realized that the true victory wasn't in their defeat. It was in how I had risen above their betrayal. I hadn't let their actions define me. I hadn't let them control my fate. In the end, it wasn't about the empire I had walked away from. It was about the life I had chosen to create. For myself, Zach and Mia had thought they could take everything from me, but what they didn't understand was that the one thing they couldn't take was my ability to choose my future. And that's what I had done. I had chosen a future free from their manipulation, a future where I was in control of my own destiny. As for Zach, his world was completely shattered. The business he had stolen from me was gone, and he had no one left to blame but himself. He had been so consumed by greed that he had alienated everyone who had once supported him. The empire he had tried to build came crashing down, and the world saw him for what he truly was, a man driven by selfishness and ambition, willing to destroy anything and anyone in his way. Mia, too, paid a steep price. Her lies and betrayal caught up with her, and she was forced to face the consequences of her actions. She had thought she could manipulate the situation to her advantage, but in the end, she was left alone, her reputation ruined, and her future uncertain. The money she had been promised, the position of power she thought was hers, all disappeared. She had been played just like I had been. The only difference was that I had learned from my mistakes, while Mia was now paying the price for hers. And me? I walked away from it all. I didn't need the empire, the wealth, or the power. What I needed was freedom. Freedom to live my life on my own terms. Freedom to make my own choices. I had reclaimed my life, not by taking back what they had stolen, but by choosing to leave it all behind. The truth had come out, and in the end, that was all that mattered. Now, as I stand here, free from the grasp of the family business and the manipulation of Zach and Mia, I can finally say that I am at peace. I don't need to prove anything to anyone. The empire may have crumbled, but I've built something far stronger: my independence, my strength, and my future. If you've been following my journey and want to see how I continue to build my life, make sure to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below to let me know where you're watching from. I'd love to hear your thoughts.